Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Friday. Thank you for joining us during your lunch break. I'm going to give it maybe just one more minute as people are filtering into the room, and then we will go ahead and get started. We had quite a few people registered for today, so I'm excited to see that there's already 20 plus people in the room, and we'll see how many more join us in the next minute or so. Devin, oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was sneaking a peek at the attendee list. I see familiar names. Hi, Cecilia. And Gary, I remember you from one of the previous sessions.
I was just going to say, I see here that Devin raised his hand. So Devin, if you have a question, please put it in the chat or the Q&A. And it is a webinar session, so you won't be able to talk and we can't see you, but you're more than welcome to interact with us in the chat. And like Jen just said, Cecilia, anyone else who's been online before, feel free to say hi, say happy Friday, tell us what you're doing this weekend. I'm going to get us started in about another 30 seconds. No problem, Devin.
Yeah, happy Friday for sure.
All right, it's 12:03, so I'm just going to get us started here, and any stragglers that come in will hopefully just miss my introduction. But like I said, welcome, happy Friday to everyone that's joining us for the session today. This is the fourth part in our website planning series that we've been doing with Brand Swan, and I'm happy to have Jen here with us again today to finish us off on a Friday. For those of you that aren't familiar with the Temple Small Business Development Center, we are located right here in Philadelphia. And we have a center of excellence for digital services, which means we are allowed to offer these services statewide. So some of you might be here in Philly with us, some of you might be across the state. We're happy to have all of you here with us today. The SBDCs are a nonprofit funded by the federal, state, and local government. And we're actually part of an accredited network of over 1,000 SBDCs in the United States. So if you're located in Delaware, New Jersey, Virginia, there's an SBDC there for you. And if you're in Pennsylvania, there are actually 16 different SBDCs located here that will help you depending on your region. So besides offering a variety of informational webinars like the one you're on today, we do offer one-on-one consulting at no cost to you. And you can sign up on our website or on the Pennsylvania SBDC website, and they will sort you to the correct center for your region, like I said. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Jen, and she'll get us started for today's session on website planning.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And hello, everyone. I am excited to do this presentation with you. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, so you have a website. What is the next step? How do you get people to actually start using it? We're going to talk about blogging, SEO. We're going to talk about some of the non-SEO ways to start driving traffic to your website. First things first, this is me. I am the co-founder and marketing director of Brand Swan. We are a branding, web design, and marketing company. We work with small businesses and nonprofits to help them stand out from the flock and to reveal their inner awesome. A little bit more about me. Obviously, I am very excited about branding, web design, and marketing. I am also obsessed with efficiency. I like bulleted lists and organizing tasks. I am a parent of 2 boys, dog owner. I read compulsively, and I am happy to provide free consultations. So there are links in this presentation that will go out afterwards to share all of the resources I'm going to mention, including that link to a free consultation if anyone wants to follow up with me after this presentation. All right, diving right in. So people say, how do I get people to visit my website? But what they should really be asking is, how do your clients find information? And I think that's kind of marketing 101. Put yourself in the mind of your target audience. What do they need? What are they looking for? All right, so website. A lot of people worry, maybe not worry. A lot of people think they build the website and people will come, right? But building a website is kind of like hosting a party. If you don't tell anyone that you're doing it, No one knows it's there. You have to remember to send out those invites and get the word out about your party, or in this case, the website. We've actually had clients hold their websites because they were so afraid that as soon as they put the website up, they were going to get an influx of clients and they wouldn't be able to handle it. And we have to reassure people, like, as awesome as it would be if that was the case, no, it's going to take a little bit more effort. Your website is an amazing tool. It's going to funnel people through. It's going to tell them how to take the next step, how to get in touch with you. For people who aren't sure whether or not they're ready to convert, it's going to be that extra step that convinces them they're ready to work with you. But you have to get people there for this tool to be useful. So there are a few different ways. And as you can see here, it's mostly SEO. SEO, search engine optimization, is getting your website to rank higher in the search engines, whether that's Google, Bing, something else. There are different ways to do this that are on the website itself and off the website. I am mostly going to talk about SEO, but there are other ways to share your website link. And we're going to start with those because this topic doesn't have quite as much to dive into as the other ones. So basically, non-SEO. We're talking print media, we're talking TV, radio, speaking like I am today. Any promotional avenue that you choose, you should be mentioning your website. You should be telling people how to get in touch with you, what your contact information is, and that website. So you can see these are trade show flyers. The website's huge, it's in the middle, all the other information, great, important, but that website is number one because you want people to follow up with you afterwards. I'm sure. Okay, sorry, just checking the questions. Rick asked, will this also go over making a website mobile friendly? We are going to touch on that topic a little bit, but this is not a, speaks louder. This is not a website design session, so we're not going to go too far into it. But yeah, we'll touch on a few things about mobile responsive. Okay, so anyway, so any questions about print or non-SEO methods? It's pretty straightforward. Just you build the website, you need to announce it, you need to tell people you're excited, you need to be putting it out on every promotional channel that you normally use. Whether that's email, social media, something online, maybe that's in person, definitely on your business card, everything you can think of. All right. On page SEO. So I talked about there being two different types of SEO. On page is everything you can do within your own website. So literally on the website pages that you have. The more useful or valuable that Google perceives your website to be, the higher you're going to rank on search. So some different tactics, making sure your website is usable, it's got to be fast, it's got to be responsive for mobile, and you have to have good content. We'll talk about the tech stuff first because it's a little bit more straightforward, and then there's a little bit more depth to get into with the keywords and the content. So starting us off, this was maybe an overly dramatic quote from siteimprove.com. A single broken link can impact your search engine rankings, your site's user experience, result in lost customers and revenue, or in the worst case, all of the above. Dramatic, drum roll. So what does that mean? It means that if someone's coming to your website and they're clicking the About page and it says 404 page not found, they're not going to stay on your website. Your website needs to function properly. It needs to work the way they expect it to. In addition to links, that's probably the most obvious one, but the images need to load. Your content needs to load. When they go to your website, it needs to be functioning. So usability is, it sounds pretty straightforward. There's more to it than that. There's how easy is it to navigate the site? How easy is it to find the information they're looking for? There's always things you can do to improve the page flow. But first things first, is it working properly? That's number one. And if it's not working properly, then there's not a whole lot of point in improving everything else. This is the first thing you should do. So resource. There's a broken link checker, which is great if you have a blog or if you have a lot of content. So, if you've got 100 blog posts, you're maybe not necessarily going to check every single one of them manually. So run it through this resource here, brokenlinkcheck.com, and it will tell you which pages have broken links on them, and then you know where to go to fix them. The other fix that I'm going to mention here is to go through your pages one by one, make sure everything's working. And if it's not, and actually test the links and click the buttons and make sure that they go somewhere. And then, just fix things that are broken. All right, 40% of consumers will wait no more than 3 seconds before abandoning a site. And I think this always surprises people. Like 3 seconds sounds like no time at all, right? We're not goldfish. We have a better attention span than that. But think about when you're researching something online, you are, maybe opening 9 tabs of different websites, and you're going to see which one has the answers that you want. So you're doing a really quick scan to see which sites are the best that you're going to read a little bit longer. So this time, it keeps getting lower. Things get faster and we get shorter attention spans because all of this information is available at our fingertips. So speed is of the utmost importance. So like that said, you have 2 to 3 seconds for your website to load. If it's taking longer than that, you need to figure out how to fix that. It's not just that you're losing people, but the more people bounce from your website, the more Google pays attention. They see that people are bouncing off your site, and then they rank your site lower because they're like, oh, this website is not helpful to people. There is a page speed checker. There's actually a ton of them, but this is Google's that I've linked to here. You can check that to see how you perform. It will show you how you perform on desktop and on mobile. And then it will actually give you a list of suggestions. So I gave a couple of fixes here, but honestly, this tool is really great because it will give you some ideas of what you can do, and it will tell you what the biggest slowdowns coming from. Sometimes it's bandwidth. Maybe you've got the cheapest hosting package, but you're getting too much website traffic, so you need to upgrade. Sometimes it's image sizes. Oh, bandwidth. And maybe bandwidth's not the right word, but website traffic. So you get a certain amount of traffic before your website starts to load more slowly. So if you need more bandwidth, that means that you'll be able to get more traffic before it slows down. And that's something that you get with your website host. Okay, what is a good page speed? So we talked about how quickly it needs to load. So it should load in like a second or less. It should load pretty quickly. And if you use the page speed grader, it'll give you kind of your, it'll put you in the green light if it loads fast enough. Oh, Small Business Development Center would like to answer this question. Oh, no.
Oh, no, yeah, I'm fine. I was just going to say, one of the things that SEO is going to help you with is getting people onto your site, but also you want to make sure that it's fast enough for people when they're on your site. So to Jen's point, if people are trying to reach you, then you need to make sure your speed is fast enough. One of the things you can do besides using the resource check speed that she has here is look at some other people's sites and see how long it takes to load. Look at other small business sites. If it's taking 2, 3, 4 seconds and you're feeling frustrated, then your consumers are going to feel the same frustration on your page. Another thing that I've run into with a lot of our clients is they don't realize when their page is broken, to Jen's other point. So these are really key takeaways. And I think Jen's covered it, but if you have any other questions, you can always reach out to us here at the SBDC.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Okay, so kind of going into some of the other common issues that we see. A lot of times people are uploading photos, when they're blogging, and they don't realize they're just buying stock photos or they're downloading them from somewhere and they're uploading them at full resolution. If an image is 5 megabytes, that is way too big for the web. That is going to slow your site down. So there are things that you can do, maybe you don't have Photoshop, or maybe you don't know how to resize photos. There are plugins that can help with that. And I started listing plugins here that would be helpful, and there's too many. And I thought not everyone here is going to have a WordPress site. So I didn't want to give you a ton of WordPress specific resources, but for images, look for like image compression tools. Make sure that you have something that caches images in your website. And what caching means is that it saves it. So once someone has visited the website the first time, the images will be remembered in their browser and they don't have to load from scratch every single time. And that will help a lot too. And then, like I said, the page speed tool, that will give you more specific suggestions tailored to your website, which is why I really recommend using this instead of using some generic checklist. All right, so I remember looking this up a couple years ago and I was like, did mobile overtake desktop for how people are visiting the web? And it did. I think it overtook it, I don't know, 2016, maybe earlier than that. So more people are now looking at websites on their phone than on their computers, which I don't think that should be a surprise. Like everywhere you go, you see people on their phones. And yeah, so this statistic here, this 58% is mobile, that was in 2018. So now it's 3 years later, plus we had the pandemic. I'm sure it's even higher than that now. So when we talk about the difference between mobile and desktop, Google actually treats them differently in terms of their rankings. So it will take a look at how your site performs on mobile and how it performs on desktop. And then depending what device the user is on, if they're on a phone, it will give them their results based on mobile rankings. And then if they're on a desktop computer, it will give them the results based on that. So Google is trying to provide the best experience for users on the device that they're on, which when you stop to think about how much Google knows about what we're doing at any given moment is a little alarming, but they do. And supposedly they're trying to help us with that. So again, you will want to check your page speed. You'll want to see how you're performing on desktop, how you're performing on mobile. And then if there are mobile issues that you don't have on desktop, it could be because there's page elements that don't perform as well on mobile. For example, video and anything that's higher resolution. So our desktops have a lot more memory than our phones do, and phones are improving all the time. So this is becoming less the case than it was before, but it is still true that a video might look perfectly good on your computer and then not load at all. And so for a while, it was very trendy to do like video backgrounds with text on top of them. And we noticed a few sites where the video background just didn't load on the phone at all. So the video didn't load, the text was white because it was supposed to have a video behind it. There was no background. You couldn't even see the headlines because they hadn't planned for the mobile experience. So there are things like that, just checking. Just open it up on your phone, see what happens. What's slow, what doesn't load properly, what takes a few seconds. And then if it's a design element that you don't need, for example, actually, I'll just go ahead and show you. On the Brand Swan website, we have a lot of little like creative touches that are not an absolute necessity. Oh, and look, this is a perfect example. How long did that website take to load? I think that was 3 seconds. We're running the risk of losing people. Okay, so these feathers, very cool in my opinion. It's my website, so of course I think that, but they have a transparent background. They have these fuzzy edges. They're not small file sizes. And so for mobile, we hid them completely. We don't make your phone take the time to load those feathers because that slows it down and it's completely unnecessary. It's just an aesthetic touch. So that's an example of hiding elements that you may not need for mobile. Okay, so I see a question from Rick. Will this work for any industry or only online sales companies? I don't know. So the question is, will getting people to visit your website work for any industry? I think I might need some clarification on that question, but I can answer that for most industries that I can think of, having a website is useful because websites are how we look up information about companies that we want to work with. So if you have a client or customer base, they're probably going to want to see your website at some point. There are a few exceptions, but it's more important for some industries than others. And then if you have a website, then yes, all of this applies. So I guess the real question is, do you need a website? And
I'm gonna hop in on that too. I think this came in right when you were talking about Google.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I think he's asking, will the Google rankings work for your industry, even if it's not online sales? And the answer would still obviously be yes there.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can search anything. Mm-hmm.
All right, we do have 2 other questions here as well. So we were just talking about programming mobile versus desktop. Someone's asking, how difficult do you think it is to, do those updates to your website?
And that just depends on what website builder you have. So whatever, if you made your own website, then you probably have the tech savvy to adapt it for mobile, but it depends what website builder you're using. So, if it's WordPress or if it's Squarespace, if it's something that's got a drag and drop builder that's easy to use, then you should absolutely have the flexibility to make those changes that you need to make. If you're using something that's, not very customizable, then you might be stuck at however that theme does with it. You might not be able to make those changes. So it just depends on what platform you're using, what theme you have installed. and how comfortable you are with technology.
Yeah, and then I'm gonna go off of that too, because Jen and many of the people on this call might be using WordPress. I know Jen uses WordPress. That's probably one of the most popular in terms of versatility and how you can change things and update things. But we do have a lot of small businesses coming to us looking at Shopify or Squarespace, which are great if you're just starting out and don't have a lot of tech savvy. But I will say, to Jen's point, the functionality there in terms of designing it or changing the way it looks is a lot less. Because of what that platform offers. So the first step in deciding how hard it is to program is looking at what web platform you're using.
Yeah, but I'd imagine with something like Shopify that's so popular, they're probably great on mobile. They probably know all the tricks already that you need to use.
Yep, good point.
Sorry, my business partner loves Shopify. So I can't say anything bad about it. I saw a question from the chat. Which WordPress theme do you recommend? We use Divi, D-I-V-I, and we love it. It's very drag and drop. So, you know, like, oh, I want an image, click add image. But there is a little bit of a learning curve because there are so many options. So it's one of the things where you can, it's so customizable that, you know, it gives you a million options, and then that's a million options you have to sort through. So you have to be willing to do the learning curve. They have great documentation though. So if you ever want to talk more about Divi, I would be happy to chat with you. Okay, so finishing up mobile site design. Oh, actually, you know what? I think we were pretty much done with the slide. So I will keep moving forward. There are other tech things that you could talk about, and I don't want to ignore them completely, like, you know, accessibility. So making sure that people with different visual impairments or other issues can still use your site. That is, you know, again, that's a whole nother topic. So there are other tech things you can consider. Those are the main ones that I wanted to address for this, for SEO. And I definitely want to get into the keywords and the actual content. So this quote is from fullmedia.com. So content, super important for SEO, but also content is what convinces people that they want to stay on your website and they want to keep looking at your stuff and that they might want to work with you. So obviously content is, cannot be underestimated. Okay, sorry. Oh, that's so funny. Someone said Wix has amazing customer service. I had a terrible experience with Wix, so I didn't have that experience at all, but I noticed that they have different levels of customer service available for different packages. So that might be, if you have a freebie account, the customer service is less good than the pro account, but I don't know what you have, so I don't know what your experience was. Anonymous attendee. And then Laura, Divi is with WordPress, and it's a separate installation. So you'd have to go look up Divi and then you buy the theme and then you install it. And I actually don't have a link in this presentation to Divi, but I'm sure we could share that after the presentation's over. Okay, so getting into content, wanted to start with some basic terminology. So keywords. For anyone who doesn't know, that's the search terms people are using to look for information. So anytime someone's going to Google and they're typing something in, that is their keyword. And I feel like it's a little bit misleading because you think keyword like, oh, it has to be one word. It does not. Like most keywords are a short phrase, some are longer phrases. So in this example, web design Delaware, that's one that we want to rank for because we're a web design company in Delaware. But you know, maybe it's web design real estate portfolio, right? Like that's a longer phrase, that is still a perfectly acceptable keyword. It just depends on what you think people are searching when they're looking for you. More and more with like voice to text, people are searching things like, what's a good web design company near me? So that's an entire question that could be a keyword. So first things first, get to know your target audience, see what keywords they're searching for. You can use tools like the one that I have linked here is Keyword Planner that Google has. So you can type in the search phrases that you think people are using, and it will give you suggestions and it will show you how many queries each one is getting, how many people are searching that. And it will also show you the competition. So this one is a really popular search term. Because it's really popular, it also has a lot of people that are trying to rank their websites for it. And so I guess your goal is to find one that's searched pretty heavily, but has less competition. And, obviously everyone else is looking at the same information you are. So that might be a unicorn that you don't find, but using Google Keyword Planner just gives you a better idea of whether you're on the ball with the keywords you think people are using versus just kind of guessing and hoping you get it right. Page titles. So in WordPress or Squarespace, this is pretty obvious, but a lot of people are calling a page like home or about, and you're missing an opportunity to give a more descriptive title that tells people what you do. So if you look at the page titles people are using here, usually they'll have the company name in it. And sometimes that can be set automatically, but then, this is probably their homepage, but the title is Delaware's Best Web Design Company. For Brand Swan. Ours is actually a little too long. Pointing out our own flaws. A Delaware web design, branding, and marketing company. So putting your whole, like the whole keyword in that page title is a good idea. I will get more into keywords, Laura. Okay, and then meta description. So the meta description is something that you can set on the page, and this is where it will show up. So when you search with those keywords, web design Delaware, these are the page titles that come up, and these are where the meta descriptions show up. Okay, so let's talk about how to use, now that we have the definitions down, how to use that keyword throughout your content. So you want to use it in your headlines, in your page titles. You want to use it throughout the body copy, and you want to use it a certain amount. You don't want to get to the point where you sound like a robot, like we are a web design company who specializes in web design. You want to make sure it sounds like you're talking to people, because Google is smart enough to see when you're stuffing in keywords unnecessarily. There are tools, and again, this is a WordPress tool. Yoast is a plugin that will actually give you a rating, and it's free. There's a paid version of it, but there's also a free version that does a lot. And so you can put in your keyword, and then it will tell you how you can improve that content, whether that's add more keywords. Oh, you forgot your meta description. It gives you a place to add the description. It lets you change the page URLs. So maybe by default, it's really long, like brandswan.com/web design Delaware something something. So you're like, oh no, I don't want it to be that long. brandswan.com/web design. Now that's easier for everyone to type. That's easier to copy and paste. So if you have WordPress, I would say Yoast is an absolute must. It's very easy to use, and it basically does the SEO for you if you don't know how to do it. All right, a couple of questions I see. Oh, okay. Lee wants to know more about accessibility. And I don't know, there might be other workshops on that. Sarah could let you know.
Yeah, so we don't have a specific workshop on that at this time, Lee, but I do appreciate you bringing awareness to this. So anyone who can't see what he put in the Q&A, he was saying that you want to make sure your website has alternative tags and make sure that the pictures have names that pop up for people that are visually impaired or have, descriptive audio devices. This obviously isn't a requirement unless you work at for example, we work at a university, so we are actually required to make sure our website is accessible in this way, but it's definitely appreciated and something that's going to give you more customers and just make your website look more official for sure. We do have a series of workshops coming up on WordPress specifically. So if you have questions about making sure your website is accessible, we can talk more about that in the WordPress sessions. If you have Wix, Shopify, or Squarespace or any of the others, for example, it might be worthwhile to meet with a SBDC advisor one-on-one to go over next steps on that. But I do appreciate Lee bringing that to our attention, making sure that everyone on the session here is aware that accessibility is another factor when you're thinking about your web design.
Yeah, and the alt tags is a really good one, which I'm actually going to talk about, but there's more too. There's making sure that there's enough space between the lines. There's making sure there's enough contrast if it's, in black and white. So not putting red text on top of a blue background, because you wouldn't be able to read that if you couldn't see color. There's so much more to it. Okay, and then I'm sorry, Rick had a question. Does it cost $1 million to rank #1 in search? And we can talk more about this, but when you search, the top page, like the whole top area here is ads. So to get this spot, yes. And the more specific your keyword is, the less expensive it's going to be. So if I wanted to pay for this to be, web design Bear, Delaware, which is a tiny little area, that would be a lot less expensive than just being at the top for web design. But you know what, I'm actually going to go into this a little bit more in the presentation. So let me get back on topic. Okay, so optimizing your content, images. This is where we're going to talk about those alt text. There are a few things that you can do to images. And so images are important because it's so easy to upload those big images that slow down your site. And that's bad for your SEO. So you want to make sure that they're sized appropriately, that they're saved for web, they're not super high resolution. You also want to make sure that there's alt text that describes what the image is about. And as Lee mentioned, this is for people with visual impairments, people who use screen readers. So the screen reader will basically read all the text, and then it will read the alt text for the image to tell them what they're looking at. So you want to make sure you're describing it in a way that makes sense if it was being read to someone. You don't have to say this is an image that blah, 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 because they know it's an image being read to them. You just want to describe what's in the image. So we, this is an example from our website. For a blog featured image that has text on it, use the text from the picture. And then also, if there were flowers, then you describe the flowers, things like that. The title is similar, but you want it to be a lot shorter. And I will be honest, I've done some research and I'm not convinced that the titles make a huge impact on your SEO. But if you're bothering to write the alt text, you might as well fill out the title too. Keep it shorter, keep it crisp, and you might as well keep those keywords in there because you're doing the work to fill it out. And then same thing with file names. File names, if you can get the keywords in, great, keep them short. You don't want to have file names that are just like a string of random characters like you get when you're taking photos with your phone. So these are all places that you can use those keywords strategically, but then also just making sure that you're setting things up correctly and that you're doing it in a way that isn't going to slow down your site and is going to be accessible for people, because Google pays attention to all those things. Beth says, can you talk about sizing pics and other elements for the web? So usually there's a tool that you're going to need to do that, whether that's Photoshop or there's other, free versions of Photoshop that work. I think PicMonkey is one. Obviously, I'm a designer, so I have the Adobe suite, so I haven't had to use a freebie tool for that for a while. That being said, if you don't have a tool or you don't feel comfortable resizing your photos, that's where a WordPress plugin can come in really handy. There's one called Smush because it literally smushes the file size of your photos. So it's an image compressor and it's called Smush if you wanted to look that up and you have a WordPress site. Otherwise, if you're resizing the photos by yourself, then yeah, search image resizer tool. I'm sure you'll find something online. Oh, Lee says GIMP is a good tool. So yeah, Photoshop is expensive. I wouldn't get Photoshop if that's the only thing you're doing with it. Okay. Is there a way to know what size to make it? That's an interesting question. So it depends where it's going to go in your site. And I can give you our kind of rule of thumb. So for these big background images that are going to stretch all the way across the screen, we make those 2000 pixels wide. For a smaller image, like one of these feathers, the biggest that would need to be would be maybe like 500 pixels wide. So it just depends how big it's going to show up on the screen. And, we're web designers, so we can kind of guesstimate because we know how big the screen is, whereas you might need to double check to make sure that it looks good when you put it in the site. But yeah, for background images, those need to be bigger. For ones inside the site, like 500, 750 at the most.
Jen, just one more thing while we're here. Someone else said that Canva can resize. So I know we've done a couple sessions on free tools that you can use for your business. One is called canva.com. They have a ton of templates that are already free sized for you. I'm not saying that any of them will specifically fit your website, but if you're looking to resize to 8.5 by 11 or 5 by 7, they have pre-made templates like that. And they can also do it by pixel. So thank you, Barbara, for sharing that.
Yeah, Canva is an amazing tool. I've actually done a whole workshop on Canva because there's so many features. Okay. Laura, we're not ignoring you, but we are going to talk about ads and the paid versions. So I'm going to get into that in a little bit. Okay, so off-page SEO. We talked about all the things that you can do on your own website to get your website ready for search, but then that's only one half of the puzzle. So the other half is the websites that link back to you, which is called a backlink. The Google is looking at this for two reasons, right? So your website, okay, it ticks all the boxes. It looks like it's going to be useful, but if nobody's linking back to you, then Google says, oh, maybe that website's not really that helpful. So they're looking at who is linking back to you. They're looking at the credibility of those other websites and whether they're in your industry. So, you know, as a web design company, if we got a bunch of backlinks on, I don't know, lifestyle blogs, that's not going to help us because that's not relevant. And Google's going to say, okay, I don't care about these people's opinion on web design. I want to know what web design companies or affiliated companies think about you. So we want backlinks on, you know, maybe a directory of web designers, things like that. So you want to make sure that they're relevant to your industry and that they're not spammy websites. So if you're paying for backlinks, right? Like, oh, this company is going to give me 1,000 backlinks if I pay them $100. That's probably going to hurt you more than help you because Google knows about tactics like that. It's actually called black hat SEO when you're trying to cheat the system. So anytime someone has a quick fix that's really cheap, it's probably going to do more harm than good. We're going to talk about backlinks first, and then we'll get into the paid ads. Okay, so this is another way of explaining why backlinks are so important. According to Moz, which is a really, really helpful website, they represent a vote of confidence from one site to another. So basically, who else thinks that, you know, this is like people referring your business. Who else thinks that you are worthwhile and that people should work with you, right? And if you're like us and most small business owners, you're going to get most of your new clients from referrals. Referrals have power, whether that's through SEO or in-person relationships. So we kind of talked about what backlinks are and that not every backlink is created equal. You definitely don't want those spammy sites linking back to you. And, you know, you don't have to run around and worry if someone's linking to you that you don't want. Just don't buy backlinks is the main thing there. If you use Google Search Console, that's the resource that I have here, that will show you some of the websites that are sending a lot of traffic your way. And that will also show you the keywords people are using to find you, which could be really helpful if you end up finding that people are searching things that you don't want or that you don't expect. Or it could show you the search terms that people are using in real life, and they might be different than the ones you think they're using. So that might be a clue to start optimizing your content differently. So some tactics for backlinks, definitely find those directories that people are using. And so some really generic ones like Yellow Pages and Yelp and things like that, Angie's List, but also when you search, you know, web design Delaware, on the first page, there's at least 3 different directory websites. Like for us, Clutch is one for creatives because they're on the front page. We were willing to pay them money to get added to their list because they've got such good SEO, and now we're going to benefit from being on the list. And if people click them instead of scrolling down to the bottom to find us, then that's another way for them to find us. So directories is huge. You definitely want to make sure that you have a Google business page. You want to set up your social media accounts, everything you can think of that links back to you. If you can guest blog on other websites, that's another way to get it. And maybe that's independent blogging sites, or maybe that's something big like Medium, which is a platform that anyone can use. It's even better if you find something specific to your industry. Like we had a tenant screening service that started a blog on Bigger Pockets, which is financial advice for real estate. So if you find something like that that's specific, that's great, because that's not just SEO, but that's people that you know are interested in your content who give them another way to find you. So I put press releases on here. That could technically be a non-SEO way. It depends what the media sites are doing with the press release. I'm considering it a backlink because if you get picked up in a news story, so many things are online now, news is probably online, and they're going to link back to your website. They're going to link to the resources that you have here. We have had some really good luck putting out press releases for events, digital events, and then, you know, the media sites in Delaware are really active about picking up events. So then they linked back to it. They linked to our speaker sites. They linked to our site. They linked to our registration. It was a really good source of backlinks for everybody. And then paid sponsorships, which might sound like an odd suggestion, but if you're sponsoring some sort of nonprofit event, right? They probably, you check the sponsorship package before you do this, because you don't want to do a sponsorship where you get nothing back, but they will probably be sharing your stuff on their website with a link to your site. They will probably be sharing social posts thanking the sponsors. Hopefully they're doing individual posts for each sponsors. So that's a way to get social media posts about you, to get a backlink from their website. Again, the more specific to your industry, the better, but those are some of the more out of the box ideas for getting those backlinks. If someone shares your link on social media, is that considered a backlink? Yeah, anytime any other site links to you. So I will say that sometimes social media has settings. So they'll say no follow on the link. And what no follow means is it tells the search engine, hey, we don't necessarily trust this source enough to want you to click this link from our site to their site. So, and I think Facebook does this when you share links on there. But even though Facebook is saying no follow, people are clicking that link on Facebook. And so you're getting the extra reputation boost from all those clicks, all of that traffic that you get, and then the fact that people are interested enough to click over. So still helpful, even though it's not necessarily this, you know, like it's a backlink, but it might not be. It just depends on the social media settings. Okay. So now is when we're finally going to get into buying keywords. Okay, so this actually surprised me because I thought paid search would be higher, but paid search is 27% of web traffic, which is a pretty good chunk. There are, and disclaimer, I'm not an ads expert. We do marketing. We do a lot of like organic content marketing. We don't specialize in ads. So there is someone who could give you a much deeper dive into this, but I am going to talk about ads and how they relate to getting people to your website. So many different options for this: Google, social media, Amazon. There's display ads, and I'll be honest, I'm not even sure who you pay for display ads or where they go, but there's every different big website you can think of probably has a way to do ads with them somehow. That's one thing that makes it such a big topic, because, you know, how do I tell you about ad pricing? I don't know. It's different on every single platform, right? And it's different per industry. So, you know, I was looking up benchmarks for a client for how much they should expect their ads to cost. And there's the general benchmark. And then there's the benchmark for housing specifically, which was way higher. So if I had just given them the generic number, they would have been really upset about how their ads performed. But compared to the rest of the housing ads, they were actually doing pretty well. So you'll want to check, if possible, find benchmarks that are specific to your industry so that you can compare. You don't want to go in blind and just, you know, here's $25 on an ad, and then you don't know what to expect. You don't know if you're going to get any clicks. You don't know if your ad even performed well compared to your industry. Try to find a little bit of information instead of just throwing spaghetti at the wall. And that way you have a way, you know, like instead of guessing, oh, did this ad do well? Did it not do well? You at least have the information to know if it performed the way it should. And then you know if you need to improve. If it did good, you can do nothing. You can just keep running it. If it was terrible, maybe you can help start to figure out why. So benchmarks, super important. And then A/B testing, which is just running slightly different variations of the ad so that you can test one particular variable. Maybe you're going to test different headlines. Maybe you're going to test different targeting. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the different areas of the ad that you want to focus on, and that might be good ideas to test against each other, because they are, they make a big impact on the end result. The photo here is just an example of different types of ads. We talked about how the first, you know, 4 results on any Google search are typically ads. It's getting harder to spot ads because that tiny little disclaimer there, like it's not as obvious as it used to be. It used to be like an ad was a big thing floating over in the sidebar. And now Facebook puts the ads in your feed. Google has the ads interspersed with the regular search results. You have to be pretty savvy and notice when you're getting ads. Of course, as an advertiser, this is good news because it means that people are absorbing it the same way they're absorbing the regular content. So your chances of getting the click are better. Okay, so first thing I want to talk about is targeting, because I think this is the thing people overlook that can make or break your ad. This is different depending on the network. So if you're doing ads with Google, that's going to be based on a keyword. And so Laura, you asked about benchmarks or not benchmarks, I'm sorry, you asked about, I'm reading the question. You asked about buying keywords. You don't buy a keyword, but you do tell Google that you want to run ads for this keyword. So when people search with that keyword, your ad will be one of those that pops up at the top with Google. The cost of running those ads will depend on how popular that keyword is, who else is using it. So basically, it's almost like stocks. The more people are buying it, the more expensive it gets for everybody. So hopefully that's helpful with thinking about it. Meanwhile, if you're running ads on social media, it's going to be more focused on the audience. And so we kind of saw, this is, Facebook. I use that as an example. So this is a Facebook audience, and it's very focused on demographics. This is one thing I don't really love about Facebook. You can do a little bit of interest targeting. Like in this case, we were matching business owners, small business owners, job title, founder. But a lot of Facebook is age, gender, and location, which I don't think are typically the most important things for whether someone's going to be interested in your service or not. That being said, for our HVAC company, yes, location is going to matter because you're only going to go within a certain distance from your business. So whether or not it matters to you really depends on your business. If something like interests is more important to you than the demographics here, there might be a different platform that works better for you. Quora is one that's really good because it's a question answer website. So people ask their questions and then other people write these really long answers, and you can do advertising based on the different topics people are following. So they're interested in what you're doing because that's literally what they're writing about, versus Facebook where you're just targeting, women business owners and hoping they're interested in web design. I could target people who are actually asking questions about web design. So that's why you need to look at the platforms and what targeting options are available for them. Being mindful of time, I'm going to power through this and then we can finish up questions. Okay, so we talked about interest versus age and gender. LinkedIn is great if you need to target specific industries and jobs, which makes sense because it's basically a resume website. So just think about what people do on the platform and then find out what targeting options they have. And that'll help you pick where to run your ads in the first place. Goals. And again, there is so much more that I could say about this, but make sure you know what you're paying for. So, a lot of times you just run an ad, oh, I want traffic or I want brand awareness. Facebook will give you the cost per click and you think, oh, clicks, great, they clicked over to my website. That's not what that means. That's what that means on some sites, but on Facebook, a click just means they clicked the ad. So you're not actually paying for any tangible result, right? They interacted with your ad somehow, and that's what you're paying for. I prefer, whenever possible, to pay per conversion. A conversion means that they went back to your website and they did something. They filled out a form, they clicked a button, they actually took some kind of action. I don't like measuring views or reach. I don't even really like measuring clicks because everyone has a different definition of what a click is. So it's hard to trust, whether you're getting website traffic out of that. That being said, conversions cost more. So the cost per conversion might be something like $15 per conversion. It might even be higher depending what industry you're in and what kind of action you're asking them to take, because filling out a form is something that requires a lot more motivation than just clicking over to your website. So it depends what you need people to do and what you're hoping to accomplish. And then of course, add budget. So am I willing to pay for the cost per conversion, or do I want to pay for the clicks and just hope that some of those people will convert without me having to pay Facebook for it? All right. And then the last thing that I want to talk about is the creative. And so what I'm talking about here is the images and the messaging. So when you're building an ad, you get to choose the graphics that you want to use for it. If it's a Google ad, you're not going to get all this. So this is more about like the social media platforms and some of the other ad platforms. But especially on Facebook, and Instagram, it lets you build the ad within the platform, which is really cool because you can do You can create a video. You can create a slideshow. You don't have to create all this stuff before you even come into Facebook. They will help you build these more engaging formats. And the more interactive something is, the more likely it is that people will, actually pay attention to it. I wish I had some stats for that, but people in the past, we've had way more success with our video ads, with our slideshow ads. There was only one campaign ever that the still image outperformed the slideshow. And that's still such an anomaly that, part of me wonders if it wasn't something else that messed that one up, if it wasn't the targeting or the, the words that we used instead. These are all things that are a great idea to A/B test. So, okay, I'm going to use the same title and the same image, but this one's going to be a slideshow and this one's going to be a gallery, and then just see which performs better. If you run your first few ads with a lower ad budget, you can try out a lot of different things. You can see what works best, and then you can start putting more money into it once you know you have the best version. You definitely want to test your wording, your images. Sometimes people respond well to strong emotions. Sometimes they don't. It just depends. General best practices, less text on images, and people are always more interested in faces and cute animals than in, machinery. So again, those are very general. They could be different for your audience. I recommend testing everything. Yeah, and that's actually it. So it looks like we do have a few more minutes for questions. This is some resources that we have from BrandSwan. So maybe you don't know what questions your target audience is asking, so you don't know how to start writing content for them. This is our target audience worksheet, and that's one of the questions that we have in here, is to get you thinking about, okay, what are the problems that they have? How are they searching for answers? What are the phrases that they're using to search for those answers? That'll form the basis for your keywords that you're going to use. Another resource that we have here, if you still are in the building phase of your website and you want help writing content, this is a worksheet that we use on all of our client projects. It's just a formula, here's your primary call to action, here's your value proposition, here's the services, here's about the company, and it gets you thinking about what people want to know on each page and how to answer their questions. So these are all free resources that are available on our website. Also in this presentation is the links that you saw throughout the presentation. All of this is on the last slide. So if you want to follow up with any of the stuff, it's all right here. Whew, okay, so getting back into questions. Website to check benchmarks. I wish there was just one website. What you have to look for is studies that people have done. And a lot of times they are social media companies, or like Sprout Social is a social media scheduling tool. And they will do these really intensive studies, and then they publish their reports, which is very cool. But you have to search benchmarks, and then whatever you're searching for, benchmarks for Facebook ads for housing, right? So you have to tell it exactly what you want, and there's a different website for every combination of that you can think. So I don't have just one good go-to. I have to search for every new client, I have to search over again. Same thing for keyword cost and usage. That would probably be Google. When you're going into Google Ads, they'll give you the rates. You're not just buying it blind. They'll tell you how much it's going to cost you before you get started. Oh, and thank you, Kevin.
All right, thank you so much, Jen. I'm going to encourage people to put questions in the Q&A if you still have any. We have about 4 minutes left here. Jen gave us a ton of really great information today, and this is definitely something that a lot of people come in asking about. Now I have a website. What are the next steps to really make it show up for people? And I think she gave us a lot of really great tangible steps. And I did see a couple questions come into the chat in the Q&A. So I just want to reiterate that you will all be getting a copy of this PowerPoint. So someone asked, will I be getting the last slide? The answer is yes, you'll be getting the last slide and all the other slides. So you can review this information on your own time. I do also want to draw everyone's attention to the chat, where I posted a link to our Q&A. So anyone who has attended our series before knows that we are required to do a short survey at the end of each webinar, just so we can see how we did, what to improve on in the future, and what webinars you all are interested in going forward. Like I said, it's only 4 questions, so we please ask that you fill that out for us. It's a huge help. With that said, before I go over to the Q&A that is quickly filling up, so we'll see how many we can get to. I did see someone earlier in the chat have a question about, I think this was Greg, about the Google business page. So I just want to reiterate that if you're getting phone calls from people asking for information about your business, that you should probably not be handing that out over the phone. Google does not just call you asking you to make a Google My Business page. What I will say is getting a Google My Business page is free, and it's a great way to add yourself to the Google SEO. You know, it's like I said, it's free, and then you can also utilize paying for Google Ads and everything through your Google My Business page. So it is highly recommended. And in June, we have 2 Google My Business sessions. So if you're interested, I highly encourage you to sign up for both of those to learn more about Google My Business, how to set it up, and then also the analytics behind it. All right, so I think we're gonna go ahead and see what's going on in the Q&A here. We have a lot of thank yous. Oh, that's good. So thank you from a couple different people. I'm glad to hear this is all very useful information. Thank you, Beth. Thank you, Laura. Rick said, how long does it take to raise your ratings? I think that's going to be a bit of an open-ended question, but I'm curious of your thoughts, Jen.
Yeah, well, and I'm glad you said that, because that's pretty much my answer is it depends. And I've seen articles that say it can be anywhere from like 2 to 3 weeks, but then we've had client websites that improve in just a couple days. So it really depends. I think it depends how competitive your keywords are and how well your competitors are doing. There are things that you can do to update it more quickly. Like you can submit a sitemap to Google and you can tell it, oh, we refreshed our sitemap, and then it will re-index your site sooner. If you don't do that, then it will just do it every time it goes through. And Google, not analytics, algorithms are like social media, constantly changing. So it's difficult to give an answer for that.
Yeah, I agree. And Rick, you've had a lot of really great questions throughout. So I highly encourage you to sign up with an SBDC advisor if you haven't already. Like most of the questions you've asked today, everything's going to be really industry specific, right? So I think you were the one that was the HVAC person. How to raise your ratings for an HVAC company versus a social media consultant, you know, versus a retail store is going to be very different. And it's going to depend a lot on the traction your business already has. So to Jen's point, it's kind of an open bag, and I want to give you more tangible information. So please do reach out to us if you want to follow up on that. All right, Becky said, what do you recommend to use instead of the word home for your homepage? And I think you had given us some examples before.
Yeah, so we'll just we'll look at this again. So it really, for your homepage specifically, whatever your keywords are, right? So you'll notice all of the web design companies have, you know, Delaware web design, Delaware web developers, the best Delaware web design agency. So they're all banking on that being the main keyword people are looking for, and then they just build it right into the page title for their homepage.
Great. All right. And then last but not least, this is more of an opinion question, but any recommendations between Wix and Squarespace?
We actually did one on platforms. So it's funny that you asked this. It depends what you're trying to do. That being said, I have had bad experiences with Wix, and I've seen people have bad experiences with them. So while someone else might say, oh, Wix is the best, I would lean towards Squarespace. The problems that I had with Wix was that it was very slow. It was making edits on the back end, and then they just weren't publishing to the front end. Reaching out to customer service, there didn't seem to be any support there. So yeah, in general, I haven't had a good experience with Wix, and I know other people who haven't. So again, that might be just my personal experience, but yeah, I would say Squarespace all the way.
Awesome, great. And then just to close out, Lee, who has been an awesome contributor of some really helpful information today, is giving us a little note for Rick here. And I just want to make sure you can see it, because I think the Q&A is only open to me and Jen. But when you're looking at how to increase your ratings, Lee has a lot of great recommendations here that Jen also mentioned in her webinar, such as utilizing testimonials, getting your clients to list feedback on their social media, and connecting it to your website via those backlinks, right? So those are all definitely ways that can also help you in that industry for sure. Anything in the service industry, people are going on your website and they're looking for reviews, right? So that's going to be a huge win for anyone in that industry. All right, and I think that's it for the Q&A. So I think we're ending right on time here, or we're 1 minute over. So I just want to say thank you so much to everyone for joining us. Thank you so much, Jen, for all of this really great information. If you have any follow-up questions, you can always send us an email at sbdc@temple.edu, which I'm putting here in the chat. And we look forward to seeing some of you at our upcoming sessions. So have a good weekend, everyone.
Thanks for having me.